Another method we use to solve quadratic functions is by using square roots. When we solve using square roots, it works a lot like solving an equation, and then in the end, the opposite of squaring something is square rooting something. So that's basically what we'll do to solve using square roots. So let's look at a few examples. This first one, what you want to do is your goal is to get your x squared term alone. So you've got this -4 and this -1 to get to the other side. So always start with your plus or minus numbers first. You have a +1, or you have a -1. Let's go ahead and add 1 to both sides. So you have -4x squared equals a -97 plus 1 is a -96. And then we're still working on getting that x squared alone, so we'll divide both sides by 4, -4. And so then x squared equals a +24. So now comes the part where you have to undo the x squared. So the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So you're going to square root both sides of your equation. Now the square root of 24, if that's something we know, like the square root of 25, we can go ahead and say what it is. But the square root of 24 is a decimal value, so we'll go ahead and get that from our calculator. If you punch that into your calculator, you get 4.9. Now when you solve using square roots, you do want to remember that you have two answers on these. Because if you have x squared equals 24, 4.9 squared works, and also a -4.9 squared will get you 24. So we put a plus or minus on these. Remember, when you're solving a quadratic equation for x, you basically are finding your x-intercepts of the graph. So it makes sense that you would have two x-intercepts, a +4.9 and -4.9. Alright, this next example, again, your goal is to get the x squared alone. So we want to start by subtracting 10 from both sides. So we have 4x squared equals 49. And then we have to get the 4 to the other side, so we'll divide by 4. So 49 does not divide by 4. So we'll leave it as a fraction. If you notice, 49 over 4 are kind of special numbers. Those are perfect square numbers, which is why when we do this next step and undo the x squared by square rooting both sides, we get to take the square root of a fraction. So because we're solving an x squared equation, we know we're going to have those two answers, plus or minus. When you square root a fraction, you're going to take the square root of the top number, and then you're going to take the square root of the bottom number. So the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 4 is 2. And 7 over 2 doesn't reduce, so we're good. X equals a positive and -7 over 2. Alright, our last example here. We have 9x squared plus 8 equals -1. We're trying to get the x squared alone, so we are going to start by subtracting 8 from both sides. So 9x squared equals -9. Then we'll divide both sides by 9. So x squared equals a -1. And here's where we will do the next step to square root both sides. Now, there's an issue with square rooting a negative number in that you can't do it. If you think about, x squared equals -1, there is not any number that you can square and get a -1. Every time you square numbers, you get positive answers. So here's an example where it doesn't work, so our answer will be no solution, which just means there are not any x-intercepts on this graph.